Welcome to the Townsville Folk Festival 2024 Induction for Volunteers. The festival is a family event. All patrons and artists and volunteers have the right to feel safe. We need to maintain a safe festival and community environment, act with integrity, behave with respect for others, and work to create a sustainable and eco-friendly festival site. Our festival is held at Footshill Station, and when you arrive, go to the ticketing gate to get your wristband. The ticketing gate's on the way through. You'll ask for directions to go to the Oasis, where you will check in. The Oasis is the control centre for the festival management, and supervisors will be able to locate back here. The volunteer camp is behind the stockyards, not too far away from the Oasis, and a little bit away from the main festival site and other camp areas. The festival village is where the artists, performances, vendors, stalls, etc. are located, where the main stages are. We have 4 primary principles to keep things safe at the festival. Firstly, we want all workers and volunteers to complete this induction. You're doing that now. High-risk work such as scaffolding, rigging, electrical work will only be done by licensed workers. If you think a task is unsafe, ask your supervisor or fellow volunteers to help redesign the task. Don't walk past any safety issues or concerns. Report them to your supervisor. There's an onus upon all of us to make sure we're safe. So communications are key to running a successful event like the festival. The festival brings together large, diverse numbers of people in various roles, and as you imagine, some situations may be stressful, resulting in unwanted interpersonal conflict. We'd like to avoid those if possible. We reserve the right to remove abusive and hazardous persons from the site. Alcohol and drugs. Volunteers, workers, artists under the influence of drugs can be injured or present a hazard to others, and we don't want that. It's the volunteers and workers, artists' responsibility to limit and refrain from alcohol, especially while undertaking their roles on site. In the case of fire and medical emergencies, firstly, there'll be an on-site briefing made to become familiar with the fire safety, and supervisors will provide any briefing for specific locations around the site. Any medical emergencies should be referred immediately to your supervisors, and any trained medical first aid officers should be around the site to help with that. If, in the unlikely event of an emergency, emergency services need to be contacted, that would be done by the festival coordinator. Protection from excessive noise. As you'd imagine, this is a noisy environment, especially with any construction that happens beforehand and any music. Prolonged exposure to noises above level 85 decibels, that's about the noise you need to raise your voice to shout to be heard. It will damage your ears if it's prolonged. Protections required if you're exposed to prolonged noise, louder than a lawnmower or a chainsaw, for example. And if you're experiencing any warning signs of hearing loss, discuss ways to reduce exposure with your supervisor. Personal protective equipment, PPE, is very important. What you should bring along as a volunteer: enclosed footwear, a wide-brimmed hat, sunscreen, sun protective clothing, and sunglasses, especially if you're working during the day on the construction or deconstruction of the site. What the festival will provide: safety glasses, generic earplugs, gloves, and high-vis vests where they are needed. This is very important because there's a lot of lifting that will occur around the construction of the site. So here's 8 commandments of lifting. Plan your lift. Most importantly, number 2, ask for help if you need help lifting something. Don't try and lift something heavy by yourself. Get a firm footing, bend your knees, tighten your stomach muscles, lift with your legs, keep the load close, and keep your back upright. Working at heights. First, primary goal here, never climb or work on a ladder alone. Make sure someone is spotting for you. When required, platform ladders will be used by festival workers and volunteers. Only competent workers are permitted to use these. If you think something's unsafe, and we'll keep reiterating this, ask others to help redesign it. Talk to your supervisors. Slips, trips, and falls. You can help prevent slips, trips, and falls. Primarily, we need you to be aware of and help remove, where possible, any hazards, including all of these things listed below, particularly electrical cables across pathways, sound cables, uneven ground, any slippery conditions. Be totally aware, have appropriate footwear, and keep vigilant in spotting any issues. Lighting, which is also a factor of slips, trips, and falls. Ensure that tracks and things you're walking on are particularly well lit, particularly around campgrounds at night time. The lighting won't be particularly good all the way around the entire site. We do our best to ensure that they're there, so stick to pathways. Stop working in areas where you're working, particularly in the construction and deconstruction, where lighting levels are starting to go inadequate. Talk to your supervisors about this. Identify and report any concerns about poor lighting to your supervisors. I think you're getting this message now. Electrical safety. As you can imagine, there's a lot of 240-volt generator power being generated at the site. This is so important. Workers on electrical supply must only be carried out by licensed electrical tradespeople. No one is to touch anything to do with power supply. However, we can do some things here. To avoid any electrical problems, what we can do is monitor the use of electrical leads, power supplies, make sure venues have fire extinguishers, scan around and make sure that you're safe. Avoid overloading any circuits with power boards. We should have no double adapters being used. Inspect any appliances that you may be using. Make sure that there's no frayed cords, for example. And once again, report any of these issues immediately to your supervisor and escalate. Vehicle safety. We need to ensure that there's minimal movement of any vehicles, particularly after dark. And after dark, we need approval from the festival coordinator to have vehicles moving around the site. Waste management. We need to help achieve our goal of zero waste and no single-use plastics by doing these things. We seriously encourage you, because we don't want any wastage, to bring your own reusable water bottles, mugs, plates, cups for coffee, reduce the number of single-use items, and leave any packaging that's unnecessary at home wherever possible. And you can help emphasize that with everybody you're in contact with at the site. So here's some frequently asked questions that we would anticipate would come up for volunteers. Firstly, where do we camp? I got an overview of that at the beginning on the hill near the oasis, which is the crew area. Some volunteers will want to be camping with their families, and that can be discussed with your supervisor. When can you arrive? If you're not part of the setup crew, then we would expect you would arrive the day before your roster starts. So if you're not starting a roster till Sunday, we would expect you to turn up on Saturday, for example. Anybody else, 10 a.m. on Thursday. We'll have a lot of other people in the site beforehand, but primarily the pre-setup crew. Do I bring my own food and drinks? Absolutely. If you're part of the setup crew prior to Thursday, the festival will be providing meals, but throughout the food festival, what you haven't brought yourself, there will be availability to get food through the festival food trucks in the main festival site. Can you get tickets? There's one ticket for each person who volunteers for 12 hours. Other tickets can be booked through Try Booking. We don't give tickets to spouses unless they choose to be volunteers and are able to volunteer a 12-hour shift as well. Is there somewhere for volunteers to chill out? Yes, near the Oasis, there'll be a volunteer area with tea and coffee available. You'll need to bring your own cup, as was brought up earlier. Is there a party for the volunteers? Absolutely. So Sunday night at the Oasis, after all of the shows are finished, there will be a barbecue run, there'll be soft drinks available and water. What if I get sick? So number one goal is it's about escalation, which we've reiterated here. Get onto your team leader, supervisor. If you can't reach them, contact the on-site festival coordinator, who's Corrie. Her number's here, but that will be provided outside this presentation as well on a hard copy so that you'll be able to have the list of the important people to contact. You'll also be sent your supervisor's phone number in your volunteer acceptance. Can you drink alcohol? Raised earlier also. When you're off duty, absolutely. You can't be under the influence of alcohol or other substances during your rostered shift. Otherwise, your supervisor may ask you to remove yourself from the shift. So that being done, thank you very much for listening to the presentation, and we will look forward to seeing you at the festival.